Ish goes off on the Joe Budden cast for devaluing his brand.
You talking about something that somebody makes money off of by selling a product. So you putting a narrative out there that I'm misappropriating somebody's culture and somebody's religion, which could thereby have an effect on me financially. So if I'm not looking at it with the key, pardon me. Do you know what y'all audience? Do y'all know what y'all audience does?
I'm talking about what he said.
Yo, why don't you just chill?
I'm fine. It's 45-minute sessions of cracking on Ish that I let slide every week.
That's right. On the last Patreon, Ish took issue with how the rest of the cast was trying to talk about his brand, but there was even some other nuggets of information with the Manny outright calling Ice sensitive and also calling Parks out for not being joked on when it comes to the show.
Outside of Parks and Ice, I think we all take jokes that could affect us.
Right. So this all started in a conversation about Ish's brand, the company that he does hoodies with, and they were calling him out for how he was, selling merch with the term Aki on it, which was, I guess, not culturally sensitive, and Ish was not down with the joke at all. And he was just like, oh, this is the type of stuff that could devalue my brand. Y'all know how y'all fans are. And he's talking about how Joe Budden's fans can easily just make his, brand merch, whatever it's called, look crazy. And this is a big deal to me of note because this is something Ish has echoed before. You remember not too long ago where Ish was basically saying on another podcast, I believe it was called Beards and Bottles, how Joe has a loud voice and can mobilize a lot of people to say something is whack or say something is corny.
It's like, yo, you got your own shit on again, blah. Making jokes, being performative. Mm-hmm. Then he like, yo, I was like, I don't know, maybe like 150. I said, it's the target price. So he's like, 150 again. Joe performative. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying? 150. Oh, man, you must gonna bring that thing to your house for me or something like that. So I'm like, what's that you got on? I said, what's the hoodie you had on last week? How much that cost? He said, what was it? I started laughing. Balenciaga, $1,300. I said, they came to your house and bought it to you? This is the bad part. The bad part is Joe's voice is so loud in the industry that it's taken for granted. Mm-hmm. Like Joe could come out and be like, your album doodle, that shit gonna carry weight. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So when he did that, the next 4 or 5 days, it was forums on Reddit, on Twitter, on all these shit about should I be charging $150 for my hoodies? Was I upset? I mean, once I saw the aftermath of what him saying did, yeah, I was kind of tight.
And I believe Ish is completely right. But he has to remember, he's on the Joe Budden podcast. It's not his call what discussions can be had. It's not his call what jokes can be made. And about 4 years into his time on the Joe Budden podcast, he can't really seem to grasp that. But let me know what you think in the comments. Do you feel like Ish was being sensitive? Do you feel like Ish was, killing the fun? And even Joe had to call it out by saying, boo, look at how tight you getting. Basically, the whole cast was noticing how Ish was not going with the bit. And what you see on the Joe Budden podcast is a lot of people don't like to go with the bit. They don't go with the flow. They don't go with the motion, whether it be Ish not liking when people joke on his brand, whether it be Ice being sensitive, whether it be Manny completely changing up every few weeks just to find traction on the show. I mean, this guy has went through more characters than a Mexican wrestler. There's one moment he's the brokey Manny. The next moment he's the sexual freaky boy Manny. One moment he's the Uber Manny. I don't know who Manny is, and I don't think Manny knows who he is either. But it just goes to show you how everybody is still trying to find a way to fit in on the show. And I think it's reflected by how some of the members are going to Twitter Spaces and seeking to find voice there because they can't find their voice on the podcast. I'm looking at you, Imani. I'm looking at you, Flip. I'm even looking at some people who couldn't even find a spot on the show, J1 and Ian Dunlop. It's just been tough. That show is really hard to acclimate into, and you can kind of see why. It's 6 co-hosts, 7 co-hosts, 8 co-hosts sometime, and then you gotta account for people like Ish and Flip. They take up a lot of bandwidth, and then you gotta account for Joe. It's just a really hard show to find your way on. But there was also another interesting part of this episode when Imani called out how Ice and Parks never really get joked on. Interesting to me, I must say. Interesting to me because he's totally right. Nobody can really make fun of Ice. And Ice didn't say anything. He largely stays quiet. And I think that's telling because he doesn't want to address that point. But I believe in my heart of hearts, Ice probably doesn't think he's sensitive. Because anytime the situation is broached, he just looks dumbfounded. Like, how could you say that about me? I'm not sensitive. I'm just like everybody else. And Imani highlighting how Parks isn't made fun of is also interesting. I actually think Parks could take a joke. But Parks is often defined as one of the greater yes men of the Joe Budden universe, and even by some members of the show like Ish and Ice. There was an episode called Festivus for the Rest of Us where they aired out their grievances and basically revealed how they felt about each other. And one of the criticisms Ish and Ice had was that Parks agrees with Joe too much. And I think that's something that a lot of folks from the Rory and Mal era seem to notice as well, is that anytime Joe takes a stance, Parks kind of agrees with it. Now, there's evidence of the contrary, but as someone who's watched the show over and over and watched some episodes 3, 4, 5 times, I agree. Parks knows when to skillfully disagree, but on the serious subjects, he'll pivot. But there are some other highlights from this Patreon episode as well. It was a good Patreon episode. It was called Jigsaw. And some of the other things I noted was how Ice kind of addressed how they could work all day on the pod and receive the same money. I don't know. It didn't look like Joe liked that narrative. It looked like a little bit like, oh man, that's not really true. You can get paid more if you work extra that day. But I would think that Ice is probably right. I don't think he gets paid more. Like, it's probably going to have to be discussed prior. I don't think if someone goes over hours, they're going to be like, all right, we're going to pay you more because you are over hours. So we're going to extend the pay time and a half, y'all. I mean, they're all contractors, right? I think it's pretty obvious that in podcasting, everybody's a contractor. You look at No Jumper situation with T-Rel and AD, and then you look at Rory and Mal's situation with Julian. These people are not receiving salaries, so they get paid for a set amount of time. Also, Flip curves Melissa Ford's question about his studio. She asked the question of, do you own it? And Flip was like, mind your business. Interesting. Flip also revealed that he spent $10,000 possibly on the new set of In the Room. I hope it's a much better set because the last set was trash. And you also got to remember, if you're doing some good pocket watching, Flip said on the Spaces that he made $22,000 the month that he quit Improper Improv season 2. So, I mean, you're starting to approximate what some people are making. Do you think Flip makes that same amount on the show? I would guess not. Imani, also, he was somebody who asked Ish about his hoodie, Aki, the Aki hoodie. Ish wasn't really feeling it, and Imani wasn't prepared for the Ish blowback, so he had to kind of like joke around it. So that was interesting. Also, Ish says people joke about him a lot, and, just interesting stuff. All right, y'all, this was a good episode. Make sure you check it out. It is a rare good episode for the Patreon because I feel like they haven't had the best run of episode, especially for people who have to pay $25, $27 taxes. So we will see. But Joe's Patreon seems to be the strongest. I mean, you got to kind of recognize how Joe is the only podcast in hip hop media that can get people to pay. But let me know if you think any other podcast in hip hop media could put. Oh, wait, there's Brilliant Idiots. Brilliant Idiots, certainly, if they did the Patreon model, they would kill. I mean, the discussion needs to be had now. if you look at Brilliant Idiots YouTube numbers, they're kind of destroying the Joe Budden podcast, just the episodes alone. Now, we have to account for how Joe makes so much content. Who knows if Brilliant Idiots could keep up that rate? But I think if one day Charlamagne ever quits the Breakfast Club and he's like, yo, we going all in on the Brilliant Idiots, it could get ugly. It could be a real battle between the two properties. All right, y'all. Follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. And follow me on Patreon, The Stop. It's getting crazy out there. Pod Wars, Pod Trades, whatever they trying to do to make sure you click and engage with the content is happening, and I'll be here to report on it. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.